So thank you all for your wonderful presentations. Before we ask the audience for questions, we'd like to start the discussion maybe with creating a thread between those seemingly different presentations. We saw our first two speakers talk to us about creating bankable projects while protecting biodiversity. And then we traveled to the dry lands and talked about building resilience. In this conference, there's a lot of focus on carbon, even though here in our gathering we try to go beyond that. But resiliency and climate adaptation continues to be a more under-discussed topic when we talk about climate. So I would like to ask you all, what should investors and funders understand about creating the link between climate mitigation, the carbon focus, biodiversity protection, and building resiliency or climate adaptation? Because we're all going to need to adapt, not only in the drylands, but everywhere. So we can begin with Ariane maybe, and then we go to Daniel.
Well, I think that's what I tried to bring up in my presentation, is that beyond carbon credits that are clear, direct revenue that investors can get, and beyond even the growing economy locally, because that is the idea, is also to help increase the economy locally and improve the economy locally, is understanding. I mean, clearly I mostly work with philanthropists. I don't typically work with investors because up until recently, all my work has been really nonprofit work that didn't have a return on investment. But here, it's also just thinking more globally about where do the company's taxpayer dollars go? You know, do we want our taxpayer dollars to go towards militarizing certain places that are directly very impacted by climate change today? As you say, you know, I do permaculture myself. When I'm not in Niger, I live in central France, and over the past 3 years, it has hardly rained over the summer, you know, and even growing any food in France, to me, has been an extreme challenge, and we can't forget that. We can't forget that the Sahara Desert, where I work, is the weather patterns of the Sahara affect all our weather patterns. They affect the rainforests in South America. They affect our weather patterns here. So we can't forget that we're all connected, and I said that several times in my presentation. But, you know, it's linked to geopolitics, it's linked to security, it's linked to, so it's so much more than just biodiversity. I mean, not just biodiversity, that's already huge in of itself. And so let's just not forget that while we may think, oh, wow, this investment isn't worth it, well, how many taxpayer dollars are you willing to pay for all the effects for not addressing the problem today? So.
I think the company of the developed country must have an engagement, climate solidarity, must finance agriculture transformation, and South country don't have the moyen of do that. Donc I think even this carbon credit is just a few part of the investment. I think climate solidarity have to be more effective to finish the project.
When I think about what investors should look for when you want to talk about climate resiliency, I think it's so important to look beyond, as you say, carbon. Things like number of trees planted. That's everyone's favorite metric these days. Look at the landscape level. What is the landscape going to look like after your project, your investment? Because carbon's important, trees are of course important, but you have to look at the less sexy aspects of what it means to truly change a landscape and have an impact and make it so that that is a resilient landscape that can stand up to those effects of climate change that are coming. It's things like organizing the community, making sure that there's innovation in the landscape, there's technology, there's roads, there's all of those things that you need for investment to come in and make those larger scale improvements so that you have a mix between natural forest, production forest, livelihoods. When you look at the landscape level and see that all of those things are in place and you're not just relying on one thing here or there, to me, that's resiliency, and that's what I think investors need to be looking for.
Yeah, from my point of view, and this is Colombia knowledge only, and I think we find very similar conditions in Brazil and in other areas. We are in a very lucky position that with the regrowing ecosystems, we do both at the same time at its best. So the tree growth curve from the forests that you've also seen in the video overtake the actively planted trees after year 2 already. So the monetization of the regrowing forests works even better with having our method and taking care of the entire ecosystem. Furthermore, it's much more stable, much more robust against diseases, against fire, against everything. So I can say in Colombia we have the lucky win-win situation that taking care of the entire biodiversity schemes helps us also a lot to regenerate more, to create more carbon credits. What we don't do also for financial reasons is we don't add revenue streams like forestry, even sustainable forestry, because we see that we need more access to the land. The land is even more expensive to acquire, etc. So overall, we, as I said, for the projects as we do them, we are in the lucky position that it adds up to a win-win situation for both.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience? Okay, not yet. But then I will continue with one of my own. If you could make one plea to investors, donors, philanthropists that are watching now, either here in the room or virtually, what would that be? And we start with you, Daniel.
Well, it's I've been working also in the financial world for quite some time now, and also we are out there with a product that we offer for a bit. And the really fun thing about it is we notice everybody wants to invest in those kind of products, but nobody wants to be the first one. Everybody expects us to collect 5, 6, 7 institutional investors, and then they would sign up. We have heard that many, many times. So please, if you are one of those, be the pioneer. We will be very grateful for you collecting all the others to put the same money you would put.
I think my plea or suggestion to investors would be to look at the people that are involved in a project. If you don't have the buy-in of the local community, if their needs are just not met, it's never going to work. And in the same vein, look beyond the other kind of metrics that are really important, but be willing to look beyond just financial returns, carbon, all of that, and really look at what's being done in the social aspect of these projects. Without it, it's not just that it's not right, it's that really you can't have success without that. So it's one of the most key things to look for, I think.
Well, at first we have a public-private approach, and we think that we can combine the double investment. And well, we have been lucky to had some donors and some mecenes with us until this moment, and we have made we make the big part of the job until now, and it's the good time to continue and to scale up.
So I'd like to talk about my ideal partner. To me, an investor, a philanthropist, a person that I work with becomes a part of our family. Again, it's about the humanity. I mean, as you said, it's about the connection with the populations that you're supporting, a connection with the ecosystems that you're building up. And I like people that are interested in the story and in the adventure beyond the carbon credits, that want to get involved personally and meet, perhaps virtually, the people that they're supporting and get to know their stories, and that are part of the human engagement as well as the monetary investment, because those are the people that will, I mean, what we're doing is not a 1-year investment. It's not a 5-year. It's not even a 20-year. It's a lifetime, right? And getting to be personally involved with what you're supporting and with the people, then it can only just grow your own desire to be a part of the adventure.
Thank you. Do we have now maybe a question? Please do raise your hand if you do, so I will know. Okay, so in the previous panels, we talked about building trust on the community level. Can you please share your way of doing that in the projects that you work in? Ariane, you can start.
Okay, so as I mentioned, I've been working, well, I grew up in Niger, and I've been working in Niger since 2003 and started this organization in 2005. And initially, before insecurity came into the communities, I lived there with my family, with my children, and just being a part of their family and being, I mean, now we work with over 130,000 people, so I obviously don't live with each and every one of them. That would be complicated. But, you know, speaking their language, playing with their children, and, you know, spending my time just getting to know them beyond their problems, and seeing them as being a part of who they are and their families. That's how I work with my communities. I don't see them as my our beneficiaries. I see them as my friends and family, and their problems are my problems, and their families are my family.
Yeah, like you, the term of beneficiary is not a good term. I don't like to use it, and we speak. I prefer to speak with a partner, farmer's partner. And maybe a famous philosopher Greek Edouard say the people of the Mediterranean are like frogs. They all the time they jump one side, other side. No, I feel like I belong to this history. Next 5 years and more pass in Tunisia. Like all the team I represent today, we are really involved in this project.
I think trust is both given and received. I mean, in some ways, in order to get that trust from the community, you have to demonstrate that it goes the other way. I mean, I'm here presenting on behalf of WWF Uganda, so they're the team that's been on the ground for 6-7 years building that trust. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges because, as it's been said over and over here, we don't have time, and it's you want to go in the landscape and say, here's the problem, here's what you do, here's how we're going to fix it, and we're going to do it right now, and we're going to save the planet, and it's all over. And it's just never going to happen that way because change has to come from the community itself, and you have to give that time into building the trust so that they know that we want them to be the leaders, and have confidence in that. So it's challenging and it takes time, and I think that's the biggest factor. But yeah, you won't get anywhere without it.
What you have seen in the video is a degraded, old, not very productive cattle farm. So this is the typical land that we buy. What we can't buy is either community land or state-owned land, and this is very much restricted. But this old cattle farms, there's usually two kinds of people that we deal with. The one is the owner, which is usually a rich Colombian family. And then the second is the people that have been working on that farm. The first gets from us the investor and usually takes it to do something entrepreneurial with it. In our case, we know the landowner is very much into hydropower, so he is going to build some more hydropower plants. The people that were working on his ground, we take over and educate them from cowboy to ranger, to be clear. So in the places where we are, I think we can pay proper salaries, better salaries than the people are used to. Besides, we have very good reference projects what's going to happen on the land. As you have seen, we have some samples we have done in Chocó, some others in Antioquia as well. So people understand what's the purpose of our mission. They see, okay, they are not people coming to grab our land, they're people coming to repair what has been destroyed. Yeah, so this is my opinion on that.
Thank you all very much. We only have a few minutes left, so as a closing remark, I would like to ask all of you to kind of summarize, because you've all said it in a way. What was that one turning point in your personal or professional life that really got you into the work that you're doing today? And we start with you, Daniel.
Oh, difficult question, because as I said, I feel like I'm fighting for that all my life already, and I see it in several iterations. So I tried out, I failed, I stood up, I tried again, and now I think the big change was that I could win South Pole as project developer, as shareholder and founding partner of NatureRe, which has given me then a team, extended team of 180 people more than I could collect. So with this manpower on the ground, I felt very confident to collect all other resources that were needed to set up a project like that. And yes, from there on, I changed my professional career from being consultant in a bank to being full-time NatureRe CEO.
I've been lucky enough to be based in a few different WWF offices around the world, starting off in Bangkok. And I think just moving there and feeling like I was working in the place where it's happening, really on the ground, going out into the field with the teams, and experiencing local expertise. I think for me that was just such a big eye-opener, and just I've felt so lucky for the people that I've been able to work with. But in my role now, a big part of my job is trying to drive funding into those kinds of projects that I had never heard of before, that a lot of people don't get to hear about, raising awareness to that and spreading lessons learned between those projects. I think it's one of the best parts of my job, and exactly why I want to be here today.
I used to, in the other life, I used to work in the restoration, but gastronomic restoration. And with the and the 30 years crisis, I read another time the book that you mentioned, the man who planted trees, the Jean Genot, and voilà, I decided to change my type of restoration.
So I don't know that the universe really gave me much choice. I was conducting, so I had worked for Care International in Niger as a MPH at Yale, and I witnessed that, you know, development projects, particularly I was in health, were really very, the impact was very limited because they were sort of a one-size-fits-all model. And when you're working in a place like Niger, where you have all these different indigenous groups that really conceive of the world very differently, well, that led me to do research into how different indigenous groups understood health and understood how that their life was impacted by health. Anyway, that led me to the Azawak. And in the Azawak, when I lived with nomadic families, that basically all the women would come to me and say, come, can you please save the lives of our children? Can you please bring water to our area? And then I went to major organizations to get their help to come to the Azawak, the government of Niger, and everybody said, we don't want to work in this area because it's too hard, it's too expensive. And I had my friends and family members that I had adopted dying of thirst. Well, I said, okay, well, I guess it leaves it up to me. And so the universe chose me.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.